Right now, as you're watching this video, there are 24 million cubic kilometers of ice on Earth. That's enough frozen water to bury every continent under 60 meters of ice. But here's the terrifying part. This ice is the only thing standing between you and a world you wouldn't recognize. What if I told you that in the next 10 minutes, you're going to watch this ice vanish, not over thousands of years, but in a single day? By the end of this video, the planet you know will be gone. And the place where you're sitting right now? It might be underwater. Let's begin. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning. You check your phone, scroll through the news, and see a headline that makes your blood run cold. Global temperatures spike to 50 degrees Celsius worldwide. Scientists have no explanation. At first, nobody understands what's happening. But within minutes, reports start flooding in from every corner of the planet. In Antarctica, scientists at McMurdo Station watch in horror as the ice shelf beneath their feet begins to crack. Not slowly, like normal. Fast, violently. The sound is deafening. Like thunder that never stops. In Greenland, glaciers that have existed for over 100,000 years start collapsing into the ocean. Massive chunks of ice the size of cities break off and crash into the water, creating waves that travel for hundreds of kilometers. In the Swiss Alps, ski resorts watch their entire mountains transform. The white peaks turn gray, then brown. Rivers of meltwater surge down valleys, destroying everything in their path. And this is just the first hour. Here's what most people don't realize. When ice melts this fast, it doesn't just create water. It releases energy, enormous amounts of energy that have been locked in frozen form for millennia. The atmosphere goes haywire. Weather patterns that took centuries to stabilize collapse in minutes. Hurricanes form over the Arctic. Tornadoes touch down in Siberia. The jet stream, that invisible river of air that controls our weather, simply breaks. Now let's talk about the water. Because this is where things get really terrifying. All the ice on Earth, if melted completely, would raise global sea levels by approximately 70 meters. That's not a typo. 70 meters. The height of a 23-story building. But we're not talking about a gradual rise over centuries. We're talking about one day. In the first 3 hours, coastal cities start to notice something strange. The tide isn't going out. In fact, it's coming in faster than anyone has ever seen. In Miami, the water reaches ankle deep on streets that have never flooded before. People start recording videos, laughing nervously. Look at this crazy weather, they say. They're not laughing an hour later. By hour 6, the water is waist deep in downtown Manhattan. The subway system floods completely within 45 minutes. Millions of people are trapped underground with no way out. London? Submerged. The Thames Barrier, designed to protect the city from floods, is overwhelmed within hours. Buckingham Palace becomes an island, then disappears beneath the waves. Shanghai, home to 26 million people, simply ceases to exist as a functioning city. The water comes so fast that evacuation is impossible. But here's the thing that nobody talks about. It's not just the famous cities. Bangladesh, one of the most densely populated countries on Earth, is almost entirely at sea level. 170 million people live there. In this scenario, almost all of them would lose their homes in less than 12 hours. The Netherlands, a country that has spent centuries fighting the sea, finally loses. Their sophisticated system of dikes and barriers, the most advanced in the world, can't handle a 70-meter rise. Florida doesn't just flood, it disappears. The entire state becomes part of the ocean floor. 22 million people, gone. Now, let's zoom out and look at what's happening to the entire planet. First, fresh water. Here's a cruel irony. Even though the world is flooding with water, humanity suddenly faces the worst freshwater crisis in history. Why? Because most of our drinking water comes from glaciers and ice caps. That water is now mixed with salt water, making it useless for drinking or agriculture. The rivers that billions of people depend on, the Ganges, the Yangtze, the Mekong, all of them are fed by Himalayan glaciers. When those glaciers disappear in a single day, these rivers don't just flood. They surge with more water than they've ever carried, destroying everything in their path. And then, just as suddenly, they begin to dry up. Because there's no more ice to feed them. Second, the food supply. The world's most productive farmland sits in river deltas and coastal plains. The Nile Delta, where Egypt grows most of its food. The Mekong Delta, the rice bowl of Southeast Asia. California's Central Valley, all underwater. Within 24 hours, humanity has lost approximately 40% of its agricultural capacity. Not damaged, lost, beneath the ocean. Third, infrastructure. Every port in the world is now useless. Every coastal power plant is flooded. Every undersea cable that carries 97% of the world's internet traffic is damaged or destroyed. The global economy doesn't crash. It evaporates. There's no stock market collapse because there's no stock market. The servers are underwater. Fourth, nuclear facilities. There are 440 nuclear power plants in the world. Many of them are built on coastlines because they need water for cooling. When these facilities flood, we're not just looking at power outages. We're looking at potential meltdowns on a scale that makes Chernobyl look like a minor accident. Let's pause for a moment and look at what Earth actually looks like now. The geography you learned in school? Forget it. The world map has been completely redrawn. The Mediterranean Sea has expanded dramatically, swallowing coastal cities that have existed since ancient times. Venice, which has been fighting flooding for decades, is now 70 meters below the surface. The Amazon River has become an inland sea, stretching hundreds of kilometers beyond its original banks. Australia has lost most of its coastal cities. Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, all underwater. The only habitable parts of the continent are now in the interior desert regions that nobody wanted to live in before. In the United States, the new coastline runs through what used to be central states. The Appalachian Mountains are now beachfront property. Denver, once a mile above sea level, is now one of the most valuable real estate locations on the planet. But here's perhaps the strangest change of all. Antarctica, that frozen wasteland at the bottom of the world, is now ice-free for the first time in 34 million years. Beneath all that ice was a continent, rocky, barren, but land nonetheless. In this flooded world, Antarctica suddenly becomes some of the most valuable territory on Earth. Not because it's pleasant, but because it exists above water. So here's the ultimate question. In this scenario, does humanity survive? The honest answer is, maybe. But not in any form we would recognize. In the first day alone, conservative estimates suggest that 2 to 3 billion people would die. Not from drowning directly, though millions would, but from the cascading effects. Infrastructure collapse, lack of clean water, exposure, and the complete breakdown of medical systems. The survivors would face a world without functioning governments, without global trade, without the internet, and without reliable food or water supplies. But humans are remarkably adaptable. Throughout history, we've survived ice ages, plagues, and countless disasters. Some communities would find ways to continue. Mountain regions would become the new centers of civilization. Tibet, the Swiss Alps, the Andes, these areas, once considered remote and difficult, would suddenly be the most desirable places on Earth. Floating communities would emerge, built from the wreckage of the old world. Humans would learn to live on the water, just as we once learned to live on land. And slowly, over generations, a new civilization would rise. Different from ours in almost every way, but human nonetheless. Now, I need to be clear about something. This scenario is physically impossible. Ice can't melt this fast. The laws of thermodynamics simply don't allow it. But here's why this thought experiment matters. Everything I described, the flooded cities, the displaced billions, the collapsed ecosystems, all of it will happen if we continue on our current path. The only difference is the timeline. Instead of one day, we're looking at 1 to 2 centuries. The ice is melting. Right now, as you watch this video, Greenland is losing 280 billion tons of ice every year. Antarctica is close behind. Sea levels are rising faster than at any point in human history. The apocalypse I just described isn't a fantasy. It's a preview, a compressed version of what we're doing to ourselves in slow motion. The question isn't whether this future will come. The question is whether we'll do anything to stop it. And that question? That's not a what if. That's a choice.